So this is a continuation from my story, part one. To be honest with you, I feel completely sick to my stomach right now. Just thinking of all of this stuff again is just, it's really hard to think about, really hard to rehash it all. But again, I just hope I reach one person out there, help somebody who has been through this, is going through this, who wants to avoid going through this at all. That's my one hope with doing these videos. But anyway, where I left off was uh, I think it's absolutely disgusting that at the age of 15, all right, granted I was caught smoking twice, but I was treated as if I murdered somebody, yet a 19-year-old guy molests a 13-year-old girl and he's sent to Disneyland. It blows my mind. It blows my mind. Of course, everybody knows how the witnesses handle these matters. Very hush-hush, very swept under the rug. Of course, no secular authorities were ever called or involved. Um, and it was never really talked about ever again, even amongst my family. My parents have never discussed this with me. It was as if it never happened the day after it happened. Um, and it just amazes me, the hypocrisy in this religion, and ultimately that's what caused me to leave. When I was 15, my sister, of course, she was back from her trip abroad, semester abroad, studying. I think she felt guilty that she wasn't there for me and that she happened to be out of the country at the time all of this happened. Um, and the one big thing that really kills me with my sister specifically is she's 6 years older than I am. And as a result, my parents tried really, really, really hard when we were younger to keep us close because of the large age gap. It was, we had different interests at different times. And, I was playing with Barbies when she was on to something older. So they put special effort forth to keep us close growing up so that we'd always be close for the rest of our lives. And isn't that funny? Um, so anyway, about, I think it was when I was 15, um, my sister, soon after she returned from her trip, actually, she started dating one of the other Bethelite brothers, also from Patterson, who had been assigned to our congregation. Um, and I can't remember exactly how long they dated for, but witnesses don't have very long dating periods, as we know. Um, soon after, probably when I was 15, they got engaged. So probably started when I was 14, and they were probably engaged sometime by the time I was 15. I could be off by a few months, but that's relatively accurate. It was shortly after I turned 16 that I'd had enough. I wanted to go to college. I had things I wanted to do with my future that I wasn't going to be able to do if I had stayed in this religion. Um, Shortly after I turned 16, I went to my mother one night and I just told her I couldn't do it anymore. And her reaction was like, "Oh, what are you talking about?" And I said, "Mom, I can't, the meetings, the field service, everything, I'm done. I can't do it anymore." And of course, she started shaking, started crying. She said, "If you want to cut back on field service hours, you can cut back. If all the meetings are too much, maybe skip one here and there." She was trying to throw at any consolation she could to still keep me a witness, even if I needed to step back a little bit, and that honestly wasn't good enough for me. I didn't want to step back. I wanted to step out completely, and that's what I told her. And it was a horrible existence from then on. I heard my mother bawling all night that night, and all night, all day, and all night, pretty much after that. Got to the point where it was really difficult to even live in that house. And the hardest part was I was only a junior in high school. So I had another year to go. I don't know why I thought it was good planning on my part to do this when I still needed to live there for another year. Um, but it was difficult. One of my worldly friends from school was actually graduating high school early. Her junior year, she doubled up on all the requirements. So she did her junior and senior year requirements that year, and she was going to be going off to college in the fall. Now, I talked to my mother about leaving in November of '93, and that's when it became torturous to live at home. My sister stopped talking to me. My mother largely stopped talking to me. My dad was just pissed that I had caused this upheaval when he wasn't really talking to me either. And the thought of living in that house for another year was really quite unbearable. So I went to the guidance counselors at school and I talked to them about seeing how I could possibly graduate early. It was so bad, even though I was an A student in high school, A minus student in high school, I was considering dropping out, taking my GED, and moving out and going to college. However, I was warned that um, if I got my GED and went to college and finished college, the GED wouldn't matter because I replaced it with a college degree. But my guidance counselor also warned me that if for whatever reason I went the GED route and did not finish college, that it would really hurt me in life. So I didn't want to take that chance. I knew my parents weren't going to help me pay for college. I didn't want to take the chance of needing to take a semester or two off and not going back. And then, here I am, an A student, and I have a GED to show for it. And I wasn't willing to do that. So I ended up going to my principal. And telling her the situation and how bad it was at home, and that I wanted to do something with my life more than live at home and be tortured. So she gave me special approval to basically take my senior requirements in summer school. So after finishing my junior year, I had a few days off, went to summer school. I took English and social studies. Those were the only two requirements I really needed to finish my high school diploma. Did that in summer school. So I didn't have a senior year of high school. I didn't have a graduation. I didn't have a prom. I didn't have a senior yearbook. That was the sacrifice. Those were the sacrifices I was willing to make to do this. So I spent my 16. I was 16. I spent that summer in summer school. I had some really good friends who picked me up and drove me and really went above and beyond for me during that time. And then after I got my grades from summer school, I went to my high school office and picked up my diploma. And I left for college within a week or two later. I ended up going to Delhi College here in New York for my first year. Um, and it was really difficult because I knew my parents weren't going to help me pay for anything. They had made that very clear. In fact, they tried to bribe me to an extent. Now, my sister also was a really good student. She went to college, but she did it the acceptable way. She lived at home and went to a local college and commuted. That way she wasn't as influenced by all the worldly influences out there. My sister also got full scholarships to college because she had a senior year to apply for those things. And because she lived at home and had full scholarships, she actually had money sent to her from these scholarships. And not only did she go to school, but she used that money and lived at home, but used that money to pioneer full time as well. So my sister was just the golden child of the family, and I was always the black sheep. So knowing my parents weren't going to help me, my grandfather, a worldly man, before he passed away, he had left me some bonds or something that weren't fully matured, but I knew I'd get enough money to at least start my college education. That money basically paid for about a year and a half, and I was broke. My dad did make a deal with me and did help me out for that second semester of my second year, and then of course loans took care of the rest. But overall, I, for the most part, put myself through school. Um, the one thing my parents did do for my freshman year, and I really think they did this more out of a lawyer probably told them to do this. I was only 16 when I started college. I was not emancipated. Technically, my parents were still responsible um, for providing basic needs for me. So they put a couple $100s in my bank account every month. And that promptly stopped when I was 18. So they only did it, I think, because I think they were told they had to. I don't think they would have otherwise, but I think that was their way of covering their own asses, to be honest with you. So anyway, my freshman year of college, going back up a little bit, I skipped a huge part. So my sister got engaged and was planning this wedding, and of course, when I left, I mean, in the beginning stages of planning this wedding, I was going to be her maid of honor. I'm her only sister, and she had asked me, and I was more than happy to do it. That was all before I disassociated myself. So shortly after this all happened, and my mother's crying day and night, my sister and her fiance called me in for a little sit down. And I knew it wasn't good because they hadn't been talking to me. So now that they wanted to talk to me, it probably wasn't a good thing. Now my sister's now husband's family is a multi-generational family of Jehovah's Witnesses, and they basically sat me down and said, you know, we're not going to disinvite you to the wedding because it's at the Kingdom Hall and anybody can really show up to a wedding. But they did tell me that I was not invited to the reception, and if I did come, none of the groom's family would be there if I was there. So it was either, 50 family members on the groom's side come or I come to the wedding. So I think it was a pretty easy decision for them to make. So I was disinvited from my sister's wedding. It also happened to take place my first weekend of my freshman year in college. So I was busy. It was interesting because, my sister being 6 years older than me, we left home virtually the same time. She left our house a few days before the wedding to prepare her new home and have it all set for her husband after their wedding day. And I left to move into my dorms and be a college freshman. Now, freshman year, my father being a non-believer and not knowing all the details of how this shunning practice really works, despite being disinvited to the wedding, my freshman year, my father called me and he's like, have you talked to your sister lately? And I said, no. And he's like, I really think you should give her a call. And I really didn't feel comfortable, but out of love for my father, I did call her. And it wasn't friendly conversation. It wasn't like I was talking to my sister. It was very short, civil, but that's about as friendly as I felt it got. I think I asked her how her wedding went, and it was difficult that, my extended family was all there, but the sister of the bride wasn't. So that still hurts to this day, and we're talking a long time ago, but this stuff just doesn't go away. So I did call my sister for my father's sake, and soon after I came home on a break from school, and I was told to call my sister's husband, and I didn't want to. He didn't talk to me for a long time before that. Like, why would I want to call him now? So I called him because my mother basically forced me to. And he said, I just want to remind you that now that you and your sister are not living under the same roof, you can no longer converse. You can no longer talk. There's just no need for it. And he basically told me that my father was wrong to encourage that. And it kills me that my father was pretty much reprimanded for just trying to keep his daughters together. And I still feel guilty over that because I know it kills my dad. So that hurts. I'm going to have to do a part 3, I guess.